Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. As you've seen in the title, today we're gonna go on public speaking episode 6, where we're gonna cover what the first, second, and third speaker do in a debate for both the proposition and the opposition side. As we started the series on public speaking, we went on the way to manage anxiety, we learned about different forms of giving speeches, and now the new topic on this is debate. You've been made to debate in a lot of subjects. For example, you can debate about something that happens at school, about whether something is allowed or not, and so many different things. It can either happen at home, at school, with your friends, with your teachers, any single time. So you probably need to have this skill. That's why you should watch this video up to the end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. And without further ado, let's get started to the three uses of the three speakers in each side in a debate. Now, let's look at what the first speakers do on each side. But before that, let's remind ourselves what's a debate. A debate is a structured argument. As you've seen, an argument is when two or more people don't agree on one thing. Well, here, a debate is when two or more people don't agree on one thing, but it's structured, which means that they prepare the motion, they prepare what they're gonna say. And I might be like, why are there three speakers? Well, let's look at what the first speaker does on the proposition side. There's a proposition and the opposition side. The proposition is the side that agrees with the statement. Let's say that the statement is, should phone be allowed in school? And if you're in the proposition side, that means that you agree. If you're on the opposition side, then that means that you don't agree. Now, what does the first speaker in the proposition side does? Well, the first thing you should know, if you're actually participating in a debate, the first speaker on the proposition side is the person who always begins. So what do? Firstly is that you need to define the motion, which are the key terms in the motion. Now, in the motion that we have right now, which is our phones allowed to school, you can define what is a school or what is a phone. Basically, to kind of introduce to either the judge what they don't know about it. Obviously, the judge knows what a phone and the school is, but here you have to go with the mindset as if it's something new, and I should probably explain this point. So as the first speaker of the proposition side, that's their main thing they should do, is to define the key terms in the motion. It can be one, it can be two, or it can even be plenty. The second thing that the first speaker of the proposition side should do is give out the side's opinion and arguments. Remember this, the first speaker has 3 to 4 minutes to speak. Now, if you go into details by giving the sides or your side opinions and arguments, it will take too long. Here, what you have to do is actually list them and give a little bit of introduction to them. Let's say, as a proposition side, you're agreeing that phones should be allowed to school, and your statement is that phones can help you do research, or you can use the internet, or maybe if the teacher is not there, you can even conduct a Zoom class. Well, you're not gonna go too deeply while explaining this. You can just be like, thank you so much for helping me, for allowing me to speak. My teammates and I are gonna be proposing the motion that phones should be allowed in school. Why is that? Because and then you give your points, but don't expand on them, because this is the job of the second speaker, and we're gonna go deeply into that. And now the next thing that you need to do is talk about the status quo. What does this mean? Is to talk about the current situation that's happening. Now, as you can see, that this motion is very broad. Are phones allowed to school? Yes and no. But if we're to talk about what is happening right now, is that basically technology is evaluating, and many schools are using technology. Either they can use tablets to study, computers to study. Most teachers even give work on their laptops, on phones, and everything else. So then, as the proposition side, so that you can allow the judge to kind of see why it's even need to be talked about. You can say it as, in today's generation, most of the schools, you can even use statistics in this, as we've seen in our last videos for public speaking. You can basically say that in today's generation, 80% of the schools in Rwanda, for example, they use technological devices like phones, tablets, and laptops, and this increases the students' efficiency as they're working. That's the status quo, because you're talking about the current motion and what's currently happening in today's world. If it was back in the 1990s, you couldn't go being like, yes, you should allow phones at school. Why is that? When everybody had a book and not most people had access to the internet. But now, as internet has been evolving, as technology has been evolving, then the use of phones, laptop, and other gadgets are also evolving. And that's an example of the status quo. Whatever motion you're gonna be talking about, try to relate it with whatever is happening in today's world and in today's society. And the last thing that you need to do as a first speaker is talk a little bit about solutions to the proposition team is bringing out to the table. So basically, as said, it's giving out the opinions and arguments, and also the solutions to it. And you can be like, yes, sometimes phone can be distracting, but we can actually manage to tell students to not use it this time. And if a student is using it to play games, for example, we can then take that phone and give it back, for example, after a week, after a month, and all that. Now, let's look at what the first speaker on the opposition side does. Well, it's the same thing as the first speaker for the proposition side. It's just for them that you have to redefine the motion. Most of the time, you can find that the proposition side has, for example, given a definition of what is a phone. You can say a phone is an example of a gadget that's used for this and for efficiency. Maybe on the opposition side, they have a different definition, and that's what you, as the first speaker of the opposition side who comes after the proposition side, you have to say. But if the definition is the same, then you don't necessarily have to go through all that. Well, apart from that, they should also present their arguments as they did briefly in 3 to 4 minutes. Now, let's go to what the second speaker does on the proposition side. Well, the second speaker is one of the most crucial roles because here you're presenting the sides and arguments that the first speaker talked about but didn't go briefly through them. So here the first thing is answering the question and rebuilding points that the first speaker got destroyed. So for example, most of the times the first speaker on the opposition side can come and tackle the points that the first speaker said. For example, let's say as the first speaker said, maybe phones can be used to do some homeworks or do some classes. And then the opposition side can come and be like, students tend to use phones just for doing TikToks or not even following in class. Now, as the second speaker, it is your job to tackle that point and also bring in the other side's argument. As the first speaker presented your points, your arguments, you have to come and rebuild on them, giving a lot of statistics, giving a lot of valid information and relevant one, and also giving a lot of examples. You will notice that as you're speaking, and whenever you keep adding on your personal experience, it actually puts you at ease. So for example, as the second speaker of the proposition side will say, they can come and just say, phones really help you to focus in class. Most of the times, I don't listen to what my professors are saying. And whenever I do a quick Google search, I can get their meaning and keep following in class. That is an example of a personal example that you can give, and it can put you at ease so that whatever opinion you're presenting to the judge is valid. And most of the times, there is what we call the POI. That's point of information. Most of the times, whenever you're speaking, you can say something wrong or something that the other side wants to talk about. So we tap on the table and say POI, which is point of information. And they give each speaker 15 seconds to give their point of information. So here, sometimes whenever the first speaker is speaking, the first speaker of the opposition side can give a point of information, and it's the job of the second speaker to come and tackle it down. So basically, you have to make sure that you have this in the hands. Do a lot of research, get relevant information, and use a lot of examples. Build on each and every single point, giving class, and most importantly, look very confident. Because and you also have to look at the judge. Remember here, the judge doesn't know anything you're talking about. So it's like they're new to this topic, and you have to introduce them to whatever you're saying in a very nice and gentle way. And also remember to speak within 4 to 5 minutes, such that you leave also the third speaker time to speak. Well, the second job of the second speaker of the opposition side is that for them, they have to come and deny whatever the second speaker on the proposition side just said. So basically for them, they're going to be using a lot of the points that were used from the second speaker of the other side to come and tackle them down. That's why in most formal debates, we see people writing because they need to go there in front and tackle that point. And most of the time, they will be met with point of information, and it's their job to come and tackle them. So basically, the second speaker's job on both sides is the same. Come, present their points or deny whatever the second speaker of the proposition side just said, and then rebuild on them and give more information on them. As I said again, you'll be met with a lot of POIs, which is point of information. You can say something and be like, point of information, I hope you know that, for example, my school doesn't allow people to use their phones or laptops like that. So I don't necessarily think that allowing phones is something that's gonna come quick. That's a point of information that can be given by the opposition side of to the proposition side, and it's your job as a second speaker, no matter on whatever side you are, to tackle it down. And sometimes they might give a point of information, and you as a second speaker, you might not be able to tackle it down in time, and that's the job for the third speaker. Now let's go on to look at what the third speaker in both of the teams does. Now, the job for the third speakers on both sides, starting with the proposition, is to come and rebuild on the second speaker destroyed points. As we said so many times, there are POIs. Sometimes the other team might give POI that the second speaker isn't able to tackle down because they just were ready. And that's your job as a third speaker for the proposition or opposition side to come and tackle it down. But here is the catch in this. The third speakers are not allowed to ask any POIs or ask any questions, as in, let me give a POI. Because the third speaker is coming here to rebuild on the second speaker's destroyed points, or even reinforce them and then finish the speech or give the overall view on their side. So basically their job here is to come and tackle it down, make sure that they finish everything and they don't leave any question unanswered. If there's any question that the first speaker is unable to answer, the second speaker is also able to answer, that's your job as a third speaker on either side to come and tackle down that question. Because remember, if you leave any question, any POI that you haven't answered, that will cost you a mark to the judge. So basically, as a third speaker, you should come and rebuild on the second speaker's destroyed agreements, and then reinforce on the ones you guys gave, and then after all, give the final overview on your speech. And that's it for the third speaker. Now let's go to the reply speech. Speech is a speech that ends the whole debate. It normally always starts with the first speaker on the proposition side. So what does the reply speech contain? The first thing is that they highlight the points that were talked about. As a first speaker, as you're finishing, they're going to give you 2 to 3 minutes so that you can prepare your reply speech. Then the first speaker on the proposition side is going to come and highlight on every single point that was talked about, that was one deep into this to the second and the third speaker on whatever team they are. And then after that, they're going to destroy the other side by giving more evidence. They're gonna use a lot of persuasion in this so that they destroy whatever the other side just said, and then they're gonna prove the other side wrong, proving why your team has to win. Basically, one thing that I've been taught about when I was at debate camp is that the first thing you should do as you reply speech, you should also show the judge why you should win. You should be like, dear judge, I think that the proposition side should win because we've shown more points than this. And even if they say it's and this, we can prove that it's like this, like this. Whenever you try to have a connection with the judge and show them why you should win, then that also earns you a mark. But make sure that you have a lot of persuasion. And if you actually feel that you don't have a lot of persuasion, then go back to the video of public speaking where you learn about a persuasive speech. That's the purpose of a reply speech for the first speakers of the proposition and the opposition side. Now that we've seen the way a debate can go, let's see to what you don't have to do whenever you're talking and whenever you're debating. Well, there are two main don'ts that you don't have to do in a debate. The first thing is to never leave any question unanswered. There are POIs where one team is going to ask you a question, and as I say, the first speaker might not be able to tackle it down. The second speaker might also forget to tackle it down, and it's your job as a third speaker to tackle it down, or the speaker that follows a question that wasn't answered, basically to tackle it down. That is why you see in most debates people are trying to write, because they need to remember each and every single point so that they can actually tackle it down. Because if you leave any question unanswered, then that will cost you really high marks. And the next thing is that the third speaker doesn't have to ask any questions. They don't have to ask the opposition side any questions, because then again because it's the third speaker they have to end. So if the third speaker of the other side is not able to do that, then that's actually also a mistake, and it might also cost you a lot of marks. There's actually a technique on how you can build your debate and your team's debate so that it looks good, and it's called HIPSIS. It stands for harm, inherency, plan, solvency, and impact. It sounds like very big words, but it's something super easy. And in order to make sure that you win this debate or any debate you're gonna go to, you have to make sure that you you touched on each and every single one of these. Now let's see what are all of these. Well, you should know that the hip switch is mostly used for policy motion. So the policy motion includes what like should or must. So basically, this house should involve practices, or this house should involve the use of technology in schools, for example. Now, the first point we saw is the harm. What is the harm? The harm is basically what will happen if it doesn't get done. On the proposition side, you can say if technology isn't introduced in schools, then this is going to delay the education of students, because in this generation technology is evolving a lot. That's an example of harm. You have to make sure that in whatever situation, whether you're the first, second, or third speaker, you make sure that you tackle down on the harm. It can even be 1, 2, or 3 points that show that what will happen whenever you're given a policy motion, which is true or must. So basically, you can say if this doesn't happen, then this is going to affect the students' education and all of that. And the second one is the inherency. So basically, this is to compare the past situation and the current situation. Here, as is the motion I'm talking about is if funds are allowed in schools. Then here you can compare the past situations, what was happening, to the current situation. In the past, technology wasn't really evolving and people didn't need, or schools didn't need to use a lot of technology. But nowadays, everything is mostly about technology and AI. And if we don't use this, it will basically retard the students' education. And that's why in most schools you see people are starting to use laptops, phones, tablets to study. So basically, that's your inherency. That's when you comparing the past situation to the current situation of what was back. That's basically the status quo, as you saw. Then is the plan. What you have to do in the plan. So basically in the plan, you have to say what you're talking about, who are you going to work with, when are you doing this. Most of the times in a really structured debate, that's when you can say how something can be implemented. If you're talking about the introduction of technology in a school, you can say that we can work with the government of Rwanda to kind of help this, to kind of improve the use of technologies in different schools, because most schools in Rwanda have started applying technology, but there's some that don't have it, so you can basically communicate to the government. That's basically a plan. You also have to kind of show, because for policy motions, there are motions that normally talk about what's happening here in the world and what's happening in the current situation all over globally. So you have to touch on this plan and say, if this is done, then this is how we can do it. Even if most schools haven't yet got the access to technology, we can do this. We can work with the government, co work with somebody so that this can work. Now, the third point is the solvency. So how will it be solved? You have to talk about how can this problem be solved. If it's lack of technology in schools, how can you do it? Maybe raise awareness. Maybe start applying simple gadgets to schools so that the students can use. And finally is the impacts. And impacts, you have to touch on 3 points, which is economically, politically, and socially. What's the impacts of this economically? That deals with money, for example. You can tell personally, or even for the whole country, what's politically and what's socially as a student, as a person, or as a teacher. And that's it for today's video, public speaking episode 6. Remember, it's not just about debate, it's also about public speaking. Well, even if it's a whole different topic, don't forget all the lessons we've been learning in public speaking. We learn about persuasive, informative, and all sorts of different speeches, how to manage anxiety whenever you're talking. And you can also debate. You can do this at school. You can do this whenever you go to a debate camp or whenever you're participating in a national debate. It can actually also help you, and having these skills at the back of your head will help you. You can either be the first, second, third speaker on proposition and opposition side. And remember, whenever you're going into an actual debate, like a real debate or a national debate, you actually don't get to choose your side and be like, I'm gonna do research on the proposition or I'm gonna do the research on the opposition side only. You have to do research on both sides, and the day of the competition, that's actually where you learn which side you're gonna be. So you have to actually be ready whenever they give you a topic, know the proposition and opposition side. And that's why as a debater, you should be open-minded, as we talked about in episode 5. You shouldn't always be prepared to be on one side and be like, oh yes, I love this point and I'm opposing this point. There's no way I can be on the proposition side. But you have to be open-minded, because each and every situation has a positive and a negative side. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share, and see you guys in the next video. Bye!